I guess. I listen to Sputnik Radio just about every day. I used to be a big Kyle Kalinske fan. I still like him. I don't know. He's kind of nasty. He gets kind of nasty. I mean, I probably out of everyone on the left, I'm probably the closest to him as far as like the way he does stuff. But he's kind of nasty, and I'm not interested in that. Fault Line's a pretty good show. I've been listening to them, and just kind of every day almost, unless something else happens. They talked about something that really touched me that I really want to put this forward to you because it's important to understand the significance of this, because it fits into why America is in the place it is in today, and it fits into why you have so many dumbasses out here that refuse to believe Trump was lost the election, refuse to believe in COVID, refuse to believe from the beginning. This is where it comes from. So, confidence in science, and they do a poll here. So, it's a Gallup poll from 1975 to 2021. That's what, 45 years? That's like 50 something. My fault. That's like 50 something years. Oh shit. In the poll, U.S. adults 70% in 75, 64 today. Democrats 57, 67 then, 39% now. Independents 73 then, 65% now. Republicans 72% then, 45% now. Trust in science among all Americans is slightly lower. Republicans' confidence is nearly 30 points lower. Republicans express doubts about scientific consensus on climate change. Some Democrats widely accept. Republicans have been more likely than Democrats say creationism rather than evolutionary theory explains the origin of human beings. I'm gonna start off with something. Maybe I shouldn't start off. Maybe it's gonna get me in trouble. Rind et al. I'm gonna read it. Here's what I do. I want to bring y'all the truth, science, whatever you want to say. This 1998 peer-reviewed meta-analysis of the self-reported harm caused by child sexual abuse, condemnation, a paper by both chambers of the U.S. Congress. Bruce Rind said, does the abuse cause pervasive, significant psychological harm for both males and females? And controversially concluding the harm caused by child sex abuse is not necessarily intense or pervasive, that the prevailing construct of CSA was not scientifically valid as it failed empirical verification. You can read it. It's right there. You can read it. It's out there for you. Bruce Rind, I don't know anything about the man, but I remember hearing about this a long time ago, and it was a chilling effect. It was a chilling effect. He wasn't saying this to go out here and proselytize for pedophiles. He just asked the question, is this as bad as they say it is? And they destroyed him for it. And I kind of knew then. Like what we know now, that if that's the case, that this is just what they're doing in science now. That if someone says something they don't like it, they'll just like outlaw it and stuff. Because they don't want to hear the results of the case, or whatever it may be. Then basically, you're not doing science. Then you're just doing whatever people like. Now these are the things. Like, these are what free speech and all that's really about. These are what science and all that's really about. Now, I had to give you that. I had to give you that because I believe in science. And I believe that we have some significant problems in society, and I believe that we've got to look at them with empirical evidence, independent and dependent variables and all that. We have to test the hypothesis. And I think you have to also understand, if I go any further, what science was in 75 compared to what science is today. That science 75 was about nuclear bombs. And it was about, the Cold War, and it was about creating stuff to create bigger bombs and creating stuff to build houses and, infrastructure for the predominant society, the Caucasian society. And now it's kind of like talking about racism, talking about these problems that our society that have deeper meanings behind them. And white folks don't really want to hear about that. That's really, to me, what I read there, is that we really don't want to hear that. And, now about climate change. And I've talked about this to people before, that it's almost like, to me, why rednecks hate science so much? It's because everything that rednecks do, science eventually kind of comes out and says, hey, this is bad. So whether it be asbestos, DDT, whether it be, other things like that are harmful to the public, glyphosate and atrazine, and, these things were all used for a purpose at one time, and now we know they're bad for the human body. There's a pesticide thing in California right now that's very toxic. They should have known about. So that's what this. There's a sense that this is the way we've always been doing things, and these egghead liberals want to take it all away from us. And then you have these conspiracy theories of, they just want to destroy America and all this shit. That's really what these statistics show you, is that, it's kind of like playing Civilization or something. You're living hundreds of years. You're building a civilization, and what you build, it grows. And it may, you may not have designed it that way. You go, it got better. It grew better over the centuries, over time. It's not a century. It's not quite a century, but this is still a long time in human development. This is over a generation. This is about a generation here that we're talking about. That you have to look at the social mores of what was going on in 75. You still had eugenics. You still had this idea that black people are inferior. You still had this idea that we can sterilize blacks and sterilize the gays and sterilize people who are mentally disabled. You still had that stuff going on back then. So to go from eugenics and this idea of this perfect Nordic race and to say, hey, that's actually not good genetically, and that, hey, this is not good, to say that is actually, that's the science we're at today. So a lot of the stuff in 75 was kind of white-centric shit anyway. I think, as I started with Ryan et al., I think also you're looking at the fact that conservatives, there's no future for them. Let me start there too. Because I'm a social guy. I'm looking at the conceptual, the reality. I'm looking at the whole 9 yards. I'm not going to just sit here and look at just, the issues themselves. I'm looking at everything around the issues. I'm looking at what 75 was. I'm looking at civil rights bills. I'm looking at everything that came around in the 70s and everything that's going around right now. What we know about how you have pollution in black communities and poor communities that harm them. You didn't hear anybody talk about that back in the 70s. Because there was no scholarship. There was no money for that. There was no money to say, hey, Claymore Gardens, they had the rail yard that would go through that black community, and they were showing that there were cancer clusters. Didn't nobody give a fuck about that in the 70s. A bunch of blacks getting cancer. So what? They didn't care. They didn't care. So I think now, you're talking about climate change being real. You're talking about how people in black and poor communities are disproportionately affected by pollution and by climate change. You're talking about how, I think I mentioned before, Sam Cedar said, bring some kids, show me some kids, show me where they come from, show me their race and their age, where they live, and I can show you what they'll be in 20 years. We're at that era now where you can do that. So white folks really don't have a cop-out no more. Because that's what white splaining is. White splaining is about copping out. Well, we don't know this to be sure. Well, now we're getting to the point that we kind of do know some of these things. And so for conservatives, they're like, hey man, I'm out. I ain't down with this. I don't want to hear this black shit. I don't want to hear about, you know what I mean? We're going from, well, there was no Black Wall Street. So yeah, there was a Black Wall Street. Yeah, they did gun down those people. Yeah, that did happen. We're living in a far different era now. And I think that, like I said, for Republicans, there is no future. They have no future. And when you don't believe in a future, when you don't believe in science and technology because it doesn't fit your skewed notions of society and gender and people, this is what you do, is you say, I don't believe in any of it. Also, we're also dealing with this sense for white people of wanting to keep things going the way they have. That's something else I realized since living up here. If they just want to, keep things the way they've always been. Period. And what that in essence means is denial. I mean, I've talked about it with you guys before. There was an episode Sam Cedar did, Majority Report, called Industrial Grade Denial. And she, the lady on there talked about you used to have leaded gasoline and asbestos and all this other tobacco industry did. And, you know what I mean? We've always had these things. And the Exxon documents going back to the 70s showing you they were concerned about climate change even then. So now these crackers don't want to acknowledge science. They don't want to acknowledge reality because there's no benefit. Because if all this is true, and black people are disproportionately affected by living in these communities and all that, and people knew about it 50 years ago, 40 years ago, what do we do now? See, it's like the Nazis when they went into Leningrad. They didn't take the city because they didn't have to feed all the people. What did they do? They kept a barrier around the city, and the people starved. That's what white people are doing. Well, we don't know to be sure. We don't know this. We don't know that. And now that you're being able to know these things, well, I don't believe in any of it. I don't believe in any of this. And that is in essence what you're looking at with this deviation over the last, I'd say about 47, 46 years in regards to science. And you know what I mean? Like I said, the science back then isn't the science of today, because the science back then was about cars and bombs and guns and the Cold War, and we have to build bigger bunkers and we have to build bigger bombs and you know what I mean, and we're going into space competing with the Soviets. And now it's like, no, we have to deal with climate change, these wildfires, we have to deal with these crises that will destroy us all. And I think, like I said, rednecks have gotten to the point where they're saying, nah, I'm just not going to do any of it. Thanks for listening.